I honestly can't wait to just go home and put on my jammies. Do you do that when you get off work? Like the first thing I do when I get home, even before I say hi to my wife and kids, I go to my closet, I put on my jammies.
Well, because I don't go to bed at 6 o'clock at night, I don't put on my jammies.
It's about being comfortable in your own home. What kind of pajama guy are you?
Flannel pants, t-shirt.
Nice. That's too warm for me.
Lately, my wife has had our house so cold at night that I put on my flannel pants, t-shirt, 2 sweatshirts, wool socks, and 2 nights in a row, I slept with gloves on. I got to admit, Tony, got a prescription for something, a bug that I got when I was in Egypt.
Oh.
And as I was sitting waiting for my prescription, there was a little kiosk that had a bunch of these little stuffed animals that had little beans inside of them, and you microwave them, and they're hot, and they smell like lavender.
My 2-year-old Ellie loves hers.
Well, you're kidding. I was like, I bought the dinosaur.
Ellie has the hippo.
So currently, Ellie has it. And I have the dinosaur.
Our well-seasoned aged pastor, like a fine wine.
Hey,
let's start the pod.
If your wife liked your house at 40 degrees, you'd get it too.
We need marriage counseling. Hey, let's start the pod.
This is Dr. Brandon Beals. I am one of the founding and lead pastors of Venture Church in the Seattle area. Fun fact, I've been to 48 of the 50 states in America.
My name is Tony Mattar. I'm a pastor at Venture Church. I pastor a church called Venture Seattle, in the heart of Seattle. And I have been to 6 states in all of America. Welcome to Pastors Unfiltered. Hey everyone, welcome to Pastors Unfiltered. Now that you know how Pastor Brandon and I like to sleep, we're just glad that you joined us. I'm joined this week by my lovely co-host, the Reverend Dr. Brandon Lee Beals.
I'm back. You're
back. We're back. I feel like finally the year's starting.
People thought we broke up.
Do you know, people honestly asked, are you done with the pod?
Why?
I was on vacation for 2 weeks, and then you were gone, and they thought like we were done, like it was over.
Oh, we would leave our churches before we would leave this podcast.
This is 100%. Hey, huge shout out to our sponsor, Anderson Lawn Care, and now Anderson Snow Services, right, Greenie? If you call them for all your lawn, snow service needs, Anderson Lawn Care, find them on Instagram, Facebook. Pastor Brandon, we haven't chatted in a while. You just got back from Egypt. How was it?
It was great.
Good.
Here's what I'd tell you about Egypt. I go on this once a year. I do a study trip like this. The board blesses Di and I with the opportunity to do this. And then we also at the same time are wondering, would we want to take a group of people here from the church? Yeah. Egypt started every single day at 3 a.m., 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning. And that would be fine if you were back by 3 or 4 in the afternoon, but you'd be back at like 8, 9 at night. You'd eat food, quick run to bed, hope that you slept and get up at 3. It was so exhausting doing that for 10 straight days that I don't think Di and I are going to bring a group of people on an Egypt trip because I don't think our people would enjoy taking 2 weeks of vacation and coming back sick and more tired.
I think our people would enjoy a Turkey trip more than Egypt.
Oh, Turkey's is
awesome.
A blast. It's relaxing. It's also deeply spiritual. There's tons of biblical sites that you get to see. And we actually know historically exactly where they were, what happened. Where Egypt, there's so many pharaohs. We're not exactly sure which pharaoh it was that Moses had to deal with or which pharaoh Joseph had to deal with. We are not really sure.
Well, PB,
give me a Seattle update.
Seattle campus. We just had our first ever vision night, which was awesome. The church, we are 10 months old. PB, we have an average attendance, conservatively, about 80 people a week right now, which is awesome for us.
Hey, first, end of the year, so we're evaluating all the statistics, all the numbers. I thought this was cool. I shared this with everybody.
Yeah.
Overall, crossed all the venture campuses, we broke 2,600.
Come on, Judah. Do we have a button for that? What button are you playing right now?
Ching.
Of course.
He loves that button. I prefer that. That should have been a Raiders roll.
Raiders roll.
The other thing that I thought was pretty awesome is our overall giving crossed all of our campuses. Everything was almost $6 million.
That's awesome.
We have a generous church. We have a growing church.
Yeah.
Over 900 people, Tony, between all of our campuses found Jesus.
That's amazing. Well, there's power in numbers, guys. So yesterday I was at a meeting for our denomination. This is not an exaggeration.
Okay.
I had 4 different people come up to me who go, "Hey, I listen to Pastors Unfiltered." Exact words, "I'm part of the faithful 253. Can you believe this?
Let's set a goal.
Random people.
Where do we want Pastors Unfiltered to be by the end of 2025?
This is going to be a stretch. I think we can hit 400.
400.
I think we really could, between really good social media, good content. You're going to say something really unhinged. It's going to go viral. I think we can hit 400.
That's probably true. Chad Robichaud, he has 6 million listeners. We could have 400.
I think we really could. We should start talking about stuff that would get more people to listen. Like, what's the topic you guys would want to listen to, Greenie? Like these books women have been reading? Book talk? Should we talk about Onyx Storm?
The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. We talked about trashy
We talked
TV
about
shows.
that show. Yeah, thanks to that show, Ariel adds protein to all her drinks now. Like all her sodas. I'm like, what are we doing? What are you doing? I love my wife. What are we doing?
Are you aware that we got our first negative review?
No, we've had negative-ish reviews, but
No,
an actual
not a 5-star review.
No.
We get negative reviews, but at least they give us a 5-star.
No.
This person gave us a 1-star review. Didn't email
Wait.
Morgan like they were supposed to.
Morgan.b.
And instead
Okay, I'm pulling it
complained
up.
about my lack of empathy.
I'm pulling it up. Is it on Apple?
Yep.
We're 4.8 stars. We were 5.
I know, because we got a negative review. So I need all of our listeners right now to get online and give us a 5-star review on Apple, because the goal is to drown the review.
Here it is. I'm going to read it.
Okay.
I'm going to read it. We normally don't try to give the haters a voice, but this one, you remember the Oregon Duck guy who was really upset with you?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
On Instagram.
Listen in your podcast to see if I felt safe having my daughter attend one of your youth events. Okay. You judged UW for letting young adults deal with their emotions by canceling class and let them feel the grief for Trump being elected. Trump is okay. ICE can now come into churches, schools, breaking up families, traumatizing witnesses. Jesus wasn't famous for lacking empathy and putting immigrants in concentration camps. Oh, wow. That got very real very quickly. You know, a 1-star, I don't like the buttons, would have been just fine. This,
well, you can tell
This
this was somebody that was
Oh.
very upset about the election.
This person's very hurt.
They're very upset about the election.
Yep.
They have believed a lot of things that they've heard on the media, that people are going to get put in concentration camps, that ICE is going to bust into all of our churches, none of which is going to happen. I will be honest, both Tony and I, we haven't been ever known for our empathy.
I mean, we're pastors. We love people. We're in the people business.
I would say we're known for our compassion.
We care.
Yes,
Yeah.
but-
But we're also,
But we do call ridiculous, and cry-ins and
yeah.
things that, I'm sorry, it's ridiculous.
It is. It is.
Northwest University canceled classes and had cry-ins because Joe Biden got elected, I'd think that was stupid also. So I don't know what to say. I'm an equal in my this is ridiculous. We are overly
We're sensitive
accommodating
people.
to the feelings of Gen Z.
Can I'm be honest, can we have a rule on the pod for the next month? I don't want to talk politics for a month.
I'd like to not talk about it this year.
It's been like, he's been a president now for like what, a week? I'm just tired. There's so much.
The best part about being in Egypt is I didn't hear about politics while I was in Egypt.
Okay, so let's change subject. Let's talk about something that positive. What are you reading? What are you listening to? And what are you watching? because boy, oh boy, do I have a list for you.
Okay, tell me, what podcast are you listening to?
I am right now listening to the John Gordon podcast.
Who's John Gordon?
He is a life coach. He's like one of the most positive guys ever. You should check him out. I think you'd like him.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, it's not fun. It's just leadership stuff.
I'll check it out.
Trying to be a better pastor.
I've always mocked, like, because my master's was in leadership, and in the
it's too much.
early 2000s, every book was written on leadership. Every one of my friends who's pastors of church has written a book on leadership. So after a while, you just get leadership booked out.
Yeah.
And so I kind of tabled those for 5 years, and I picked them up again, and I'm actually getting enthralled.
Okay.
So the podcast that I'm listening to is Leaders in Living Rooms.
Okay.
And this guy
Leaders.
sits down in his living
Let's look
room
this up.
with different senior pastors of churches. And they're honest, brutally honest. Like, some of them have talked about their transition when they came into a new church. I just love it because the guys are real, and the takeaways are gold. You're looking at it now and you're seeing who the guy interviews. It's kind of a who's who of West Coast large church pastors.
This is Carrie Nieuwhof's group.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Leaders in Living Rooms. I found out about it because a friend of mine was
cool.
speaking at a church that had a pastor transition, and I was like, never heard of that church. So I looked it up, saw the pastor, and I was like, I wonder why he transitioned. And I Googled him and found out that he was on this podcast. And anyways, it's kind of a roundabout way I started listening to it. And I was really impressed by him and his wife. And then now I'm on probably my 10th one of those podcasts. Loved it. What are you reading?
Okay. Bear with me. So you know how, like, we're always in the leadership world and studying. I have decided in 2025, I want to read more fiction, because I'm always reading like all these like church books, leadership books. I am reading Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson.
What is it called?
Mistborn. So Brandon Sanderson.
Miss as in M-I-S?
M-I-S-T.
Mist. Okay,
Brandon Sanderson writes these huge, thick novels and fantasy worlds. He's blown up on TikTok with women. Do you know, like, there's this weird craze? Ariel's she was talking to me about this. Like, girls like Rachel and Ariel, these beautiful girls who you would never think are reading books about dragons, like fantasy books and fiction books, not smutty books, like fiction books.
Like books about dwarfs.
Yes. Isn't that just like wild right now? I just think that's crazy. Never judge a book by its cover.
Guess I don't really have a comment.
Yeah.
I do love fiction books. Read a ton of them last year. This year, I'm actually reading a book by Paul Tripp called Lead, 12 Gospel Principles for Leading in the Church.
It's a great book.
It's a book that I'm using for my grad class. I'm teaching a grad class at Northwest. It's awesome.
I gave it to Morgan. I gave my copy to Morgan. It's a very good book.
Yes, very good.
What? Speaking of what you're listening to, what did you think of my podcast with Morgan and I? We got a lot of great feedback.
Are you aware that I never got a chance to listen to it?
You know what? I don't get it. I asked Morgan, do you listen to the podcast last week? Do you know what he said?
What?
He said no. I asked the other day, I walked home. I walked home. Like, I sound like an orphan child. I went, that's a terrible joke, Tony. I walked into my home and asked Ariel, I said, do you listen to the podcast? She goes, I'll be honest. No. I said, oh.
I want to know the whys.
I asked Rachel Winfield, my friend, Rachel, you listen to the podcast? She goes, not really. No one on our staff listens to our podcast.
They only listen to the podcast if they're in it or they know we talk about them.
That is so selfish of them.
They're narcissistic.
They really are.
It's because we have to be talking about them.
Okay, Claire, Johnny, Cole, Morgan. Who else works here?
Alex Christian.
We mentioned you.
I will say this. Every Friday, I walk upstairs after working out and I hear my wife listening to the podcast.
Di's one of the faithful 253?
She is.
No way.
I do think they listen. I just think they can't admit it.
It's like you know how like PB, like the people that you love the most are the people in life that you kind of joke with the most or tease the most. It's like that. You know what I mean? You're not going to like openly go up to them and go, hey, bud. But you're going to be like, hey, you're silly. You know how you do that?
I got to admit, I am a little bit surprised Morgan doesn't listen.
Can you believe that? Morgan. April Swift listens. All these people listen. All of our people listen. People at conferences I'm meeting listen. Huh? Who's Connor?
Takata.
Takata?
That's why.
Maddie. Dale Irwin at our this is ridiculous. You know, shout out to the 253. We should do something. Should we? Okay, here's what we should do.
We would be at 260
PB,
if our staff would listen.
Here's what we'll do. If any staff listening to this podcast is listening right now, next Wednesday, they are allowed to approach you and I and ask for a $5 Starbucks gift card.
I'll make you a deal.
If they're listening right now.
If as soon as you hear this and you're a staff person, if you text Tony or I,
Yep.
we'll give you a $5 gift card.
We'll give you a $5 gift card out of our own budgets. Personal, not business. Okay. Hey, let's dive into today's topic. You wanted to talk about, what was it? Prayer retreats?
No. No, I want to talk about having balance in life and a really healthy life rhythm.
Let's do it.
Part of this concept came up into my head because as I'm listening to that Leaders in Living Room podcast, a lot of them talk about the life rhythm for pastors. And obviously the conversation about pastors and burnout has been overdone over the last couple of years. But how do we create a really good life rhythm? And one of the things that I like, and there's an article that I'm going to highlight, and I'm going to read the high points for the article. You and I will talk about it.
Cool.
I think where people make a mistake is they think they need their life in balance.
Yeah.
And the reality is when you work in a job like ours, and by the way, these same principles will apply to you, those that are listening that work secular jobs too, because many of us, we work jobs that aren't your traditional 9-to-5 jobs, and they have seasons where it's super busy and we don't have the option to have balance for that 2-week period, but there's rhythms. And this is a really well-written article, great points on the 10 tips to create really good rhythm in your life. And we'll take one at a time. And again, this is from a faith perspective.
Love it.
So as you're listening to this, of course, all of our staff, this is a great word of advice for you.
Yeah. Staff.
Number one is don't neglect your first love. That the number one priority, you want to create a really good life rhythm. Remember that in ministry, this whole thing is about us and Jesus, me and Jesus. I just was curious, how do you prioritize? What do you do? What is your rhythm when it comes to your faith?
PB, I am a meat and potatoes kind of guy. You know what I do every morning? I read my Bible. It's a non-negotiable. I just read my Bible. I listen to worship music and I read my Bible. I pray every morning. Honestly, first thing I do, first part of my day after my work, I work out because I got to wake up a little bit, is I spend time with Jesus. It's just a non-negotiable. I think you have to get in that time with him daily. It creates the intimacy with him. How else can you connect with him?
Yeah, I love it. What I do is I give my commute to Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
And
that
so
works.
listen to the Bible on tape. It's how I always listen to the Bible through the year, every year. I do that. And then you just get to a point where you're just constantly in communication with Jesus all day long. You're kind of prayerful throughout the day.
Yep.
I do think it's important to make sure that as a minister, your only time that you're studying the Bible not be when you're prepping for a sermon.
100%.
So for the 20th birthday, I gave the staff those special handmade Bibles.
They're awesome.
And they've got notes in the margin that you can write in. And so that is actually now when I will read through the Bible in the year, that's where I'm writing notes and things. And I'm thinking someday I will have this thing full of different notes on things the Holy Spirit spoke to me. And I'm hoping that will become like a family heirloom.
That's awesome.
That, generations down the road will.
I just think not even pastors, but you just cannot neglect your time with Jesus. And especially if you just think, well, I can connect with the Lord tomorrow. I'll give him 2 hours. Well, tomorrow's not promised. Just give him today. Give him a moment of your day. Pray throughout the day, like you said. I think those are really helpful ways.
I think one of the mistakes that we made years ago is we made your devotions almost legalistic, how it had to happen.
Sure.
It has to be an hour, or you got to set aside 45 minutes. Yeah. And there's times you will get enraptured in something, you're dealing with something, so you're praying intensely, and it might be an hour and a half, but there's times where Through the Bible in a year, the reading is 5 minutes, and you commit those 5 minutes. And so I don't think you need to be dogmatic about the amount of time,
100%.
but I think the consistency of always putting Jesus first, remembering your first love, I think is important.
Agreed.
Here's his second thought when it comes to a work-life rhythm is the importance of creating margin. He made this statement. He said, creating margin in your week is by not filling your schedule to the brim. He makes all kinds of different suggestions, but we hear about margin all the time. What do you do to create margin in a week work-life schedule?
It's a good question. PB, I say no a lot. Unfortunately, I do. Recently was invited to speak at a couple engagements, and I said no. Because right now my focus is my family and our church plant. And I've just been saying no. It's honestly what creates margin for me. I don't feel burnt. I feel burnt out when I've said yes to too many people. But when I've said no, yeah. It's honestly that's what's worked for me. I don't have like a schedule because we're in ministry. I don't have like on Tuesday from like 1 to 4 I can go do this or whatever. I don't have a flexible schedule like that. You're always kind of on call. So that's what I've had to do is just learn to say no to the right things.
Yeah, and there's some things that we don't have the option that we have to say yes to. You definitely have to learn when to say no.
Yep.
Yeah, as somebody who wrestles with anxiety at times, I know when my anxiety gets triggered, and 90% of the time, what triggers my anxiety is not having margin in my life. So I not only need margin in my schedule, but I need margin in my finances. Like debt makes me anxious. Not having a lot of reserves, margin, that makes me anxious. Looking at my calendar, like over a year period of time, and I know they're ramped up. Easter's coming. The next 2 months are going to be insane.
Yeah.
And I can deal with that if, I've looked at my calendar from a really good perspective, went to Egypt for 2 weeks, kind of rested, got ready. I can ramp up to Easter, and then I know kind of what my schedule is afterwards. But you need margin 100%. In your calendar, but I think margin is great. I think you need margin with people.
Yep.
All of the above.
Yep.
All right. Number 3.
That's good.
He says you need to nail down your church rhythms. There is a little bit of crossover with his margin idea, but what he's talking about here is whether we like it or not, we don't have your typical 9-to-5 job. We have, I call it a lifestyle job. You've heard me say this a lot, that that's what it is. This is, you become a pastor. This is just part of your life.
Yep.
And you got to realize that. Like me and David were hanging out yesterday. You allowed to say what we did?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
Anyways.
Well, now we make it sound like it's awful.
I know. We went to a cigar bar.
We went to a cigar lounge.
And when we were there, like we walked in, ran into people from the church. And it's just like that is the nature of our job. So you have these weekly rhythms, you have these annual rhythms. And you know that sometimes there are major holidays and they drive your calendar. And you just do this. So walk me through in a perfect world, what is a healthy weekly rhythm for you?
A healthy weekly rhythm is obviously all our church things. And you're right. It's a lifestyle job. Babies are born on Saturdays. Funerals happen on Saturdays. People call you on a Tuesday night at 9:00 because there's something. It's not a lack of boundaries. Sometimes you're in ministry. Things happen. Something you taught me, PB, and I don't know if you're going to get to this point, but this has really helped me. I budget my fun. I have to have fun put into my week. So if I at least know at the end of the day, I'll have 1 hour to play video games, 1 hour to read a book, 1 hour to just dink around on YouTube. That really helps me. And then in regards to the church rhythms, the church is really built off the calendar year with big events. So we know Easter's always coming, Christmas is always coming, back to school is always coming. So knowing that we've created a really good calendar of rhythm for the church, we know the summer's going to be a little lull. that's helped us, especially with the church schedule. But personally, I just love to budget some fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me, the church rhythm, it begins with understanding the calendar when it comes to big days.
Yep.
And we call big days, like you said, Easter, Christmas, Mother's Day, things like that.
Yep.
Church birthday, annual vision nights, all of those are big days where there's a lot of prep and energy. And I would say pressure on me to do my job well. So it's the sermon calendar. So having this sermon calendar laid out like a year and a half ahead. So I know what I'm teaching on, and then carving out Tuesday where I come into the office, usually here 6 or 7 a.m., walk into my office, lock myself here, and I don't leave till 5. And all I do is study. And Tina, my assistant, brings me lunch in, and that's kind of my rhythm. Usually I can keep David from interrupting me, but he's usually the only one that bothers to interrupt me. But when I have a rhythm where I know what my preaching calendar is, I've set aside Tuesday, I'm able to get that sermon done, because that is the big pressure that a minister has in a week is you basically, when you write a sermon, you're basically doing a full-on, highly resourced book report that you've got to share orally every single week.
Yep.
It's like, for everybody that likes writing papers, imagine that's what a minister's job is, except you got to write it in a way that you can communicate it verbally. So it's really challenging. But if I have that rhythm, I'm going in, I have a general idea. I know that I preach again in 2 weeks, and then I have a run of like 6, 7 straight weeks. I know that I'm coming back. I'm preaching on the story of Joseph. I've got 3 weeks to teach on Joseph. I've already been studying it, breaking the thing down, but having that Tuesday was a big deal. The mistake that I made, and again, we're talking about rhythm, is I agreed to help Northwest. And so I was teaching 3 classes at Northwest last semester, and most of them came on Tuesday. So if I didn't have my sermon done by 1 and my classes fully prepped, I was anxious all week long. And what I realized, the reason I didn't enjoy that season of teaching, which I really do love teaching, but why I didn't enjoy it that semester was because it was on Tuesday. And my rhythm is Tuesdays. I would say one last thing about the rhythm is Sundays are, especially you do one service. You do one service with your eyes closed. 2 services is pretty fun. 3, it's real work. We're about to go to 4 services at the Central Campus. That takes a ton of,
yeah, it's tiresome.
It takes so much energy, and you view it with a lot of pressure that this might be the only time that anybody hears the gospel, so you want to do your best. And for years, I would preach on Sunday, be in the office first thing on Monday, and now I've started preach on Sunday. Mondays, I work from home. And that has been a life changer for me.
I get it.
Nail down your church rhythm.
I get it.
Number 4, take 1 day off per week. Now, again, God worked 6 days. He rested 1. That's the model that he gave us. The American model, you work 5 days, you take 2 off. But every person needs at least 1 Sabbath day. People are going to laugh if any of those staff people hear it. They hear the word Sabbath come out of your mouth.
Well, I don't know what, you know what? I don't care if you guys make fun of me about it. I just have this staunch rule. Obviously, we work on Saturdays when we have to. Saturday's the one day I'm with my wife and kids and no one's working. It's our Sabbath. And we start at sundown Friday night and we end it Saturday night at sundown. It's just 24 hours. I just, okay, this is going to sound legalistic. The Sabbath it's not optional. Take the Sabbath. The Lord is giving you a day to rest. Enjoy it, receive it, worship, celebrate, praise. I learned from Marty Solomon, I don't shave my head during the Sabbath because Marty doesn't. I shave my head Sunday morning. Can you believe that? I shave it every day, but not on the Sabbath.
Okay.
I don't do it.
For any younger leaders that might be listening to this, a major trend with younger leaders has been just kind of an expectation. I'm going to have 2. Can I possibly get 3 days off a week? And while that might be an ideal situation, working in the church world, going to be a lot of times you're going to be able to get your 2 days off a week. But there's also going to be a lot of times you're only going to get 1 day off a week. We need 1 day off a week. We're blessed sometimes with 2. So if your expectation is I'm going to work 6 and get 1 day off, you'll be happy.
I think it's fair and I think it's biblical.
Yes.
The whole transition to a 4-day work week that a lot of companies are starting to do right now for the sake of work-life balance. I feel like I'd get stir crazy after, like, if I had 3 days. Like 1 day's chores, whatever. But like, what do you do for the other 2 days?
I was listening to that podcast, Leaders in Living Room. One of the episodes I was listening to is by Kenton Beshore, who was the pastor of Mariner Church in California for years. And I love him. I think he's one of my favorite preachers that I've ever heard in my entire life. I highly respect Kenton. And he said that if you are a pastor and you need a sabbatical, it's only because you've never had a healthy work-life balance. And he talks in that about how he describes how he created a work-life balance with breaks, which kind of leads to my next one, which is, he says, number 5, arrange for an extended trip every year. Mm-hmm. And so Kenton Beshore talks about if you understand your calendar, you understand your work-life balance, you should be able to stay in balance enough where you don't need a sabbatical. It doesn't mean you shouldn't take it if you're offered one, but most pastors take a sabbatical because if they don't take it, they're burning out. And then that's why most pastors, they go on a sabbatical, they don't come back because they were burning out. But arrange for an extended trip.
Every January is when Ariel and I leave Seattle.
Got to get out of town.
I just got
in January.
I would never leave July and August, September, October. I would never leave this place. January, I got to go. That's when we take our big, just her and I, 8-9 day vacation because we just got to get out of time or get out of here. So, yeah, 100%. I agree with that principle. What else? What do we got?
Number 6.
Here we go. These are really good, by the way. We're blazing through these.
You need to love your spouse.
That should be number 1.
Well, I don't think they're in any particular
order. That should be number
order.
2. 100%. Do you love Beals?
Of course.
Okay, that's good.
Date nights, the older that you get, are harder to do consistently. I think when your kids are little and you just so desperately just need a break from the kids, like scheduling that. Like for Di and I, it was a Monday night date night. But as our kids got older and, we weren't feeling like we weren't missing each other as much when the kids were little. Our date for Di and I is we have a Mariner 20 game plan. We've had it for years. I asked my wife, I go, what do you want to do that will guarantee that you and I will spend time together? And she says, I want Mariner season tickets.
You understand? Not most men have wives who say this.
I know, it's crazy.
I just enjoy it, okay? Yeah. Just for me, just enjoy it.
You know what we used to do before we had the money to afford Mariner season tickets?
Go to Aqua Sox.
We used to go to Barnes & Noble.
Oh, yeah.
We couldn't even afford to get a coffee, and we would just sit down on the couches at Barnes & Noble and talk. That was what we would do.
Okay, part of me wonders, PB, like, okay, so I know a lot of people in the same season of life as Ariel and I, and a lot of people in our season of life don't go on regular date nights. It's actually kind of like a once in a month thing that they might even go on a date.
Once a month's regular enough.
See, we're weird. We have to go on a date night once a week. It's non-negotiable. We've been doing it since day 1 of our marriage.
I think when the kids were little, that was really important. And I would say it was especially important for Di. And she was staying home with the kids. And I was working at this huge youth ministry, huge youth staff. And so I had constant interaction with adults. And I think for her, she just needed a break and needed to know that I prioritized her. I think the other thing when I think for Di and I is we just really enjoy traveling together. Like I have some buddies that are pastors. They just never travel with their wife. I can't figure it out. And
my wife's my best friend. I want to hang out with her.
Di and I, we just had a blast just hanging out, as tired as we were, hanging out in Egypt together. So love your spouse. Number 6, Number 7.
Number 7.
This is where Judah gets involved. Make time for your family.
I'm really glad that is the number 7. That is not what I thought. You said, love your wife. Number 7, Judah. Then you said, make time. I'm like, whoa. I really thought you were about to say make
he's
babies.
in my family,
Okay.
so no. Yeah, he talks about
James.
if you have kids, make time for your family. Prioritize your family. It's good, healthy balance. One of the things I'll jump in first for our family. Again, all my kids are adults. All my kids are gainfully employed, and we just made a commitment as a family. Normally Sundays after church, Sunday nights, Di makes dinner. We play games, hang out together. Everybody's coming over for the Super Bowl this Sunday, so that's kind of a tradition that we do. And then every holiday we spend them together. But we do a yearly vacation together. And last year we did Ireland and Switzerland. I mean, pretty epic. They're not always that epic. But this year, right after Easter, we are going to Boston.
Fun.
Because the Mariners have an away series against the Red Sox. Oh. And we got tickets to watch the Mariners play at Fenway. And be in Boston with the fam.
Are you going to put on Boston merch or are you going to wear? I wouldn't wear anything Mariners.
I'll probably wear Boston merch, but cheer on the Mariners. And my son-in-law is running in the Boston Marathon while we're there.
What does that guy not do?
I don't know. If he doesn't win, he doesn't get to come home. Because we only have winners in our family.
He tries to get on. No, stay.
So what do you do to make time for Linny and Ellie?
Okay. Before everyone goes, oh. First thing I do when I walk home, number 1, I already told you I put on my pajama pants. Non-negotiable. I can't wear jeans in my house. It's weird. Number 2, PB, I lay on the ground and I say, all right, girls, come on. And for 10 minutes, it's just like WWE WrestleMania. They're pounding and grinding and pushing.
Are they aware of how brittle you are? Because you break pretty easily.
Oh, I know. The inguinal hernias spike every time they're jumping on my stomach.
You were the person that was sitting in his office chair and turned and basically tore his tendon.
It was a meniscus from a pre-existing injury. Please. I just let the kids jump all over me for 10 minutes. And we just laugh and we tickle and we play. And then I make them watch me every time. Ariel and I do couch time. This is an old school principle. We sit on the couch. The girls are not allowed to speak. And they watch Ariel and I talk for 10 minutes. Every time.
What do you guys talk about?
Or just catch up on our days. What's for dinner? What are you reading? She'll tell me what she saw on TikTok today. And
so Tuesdays, Di does kettlebell training.
Yeah.
And she's probably been doing it. We're probably going on like 5 years that she's been doing it. Maybe even
longer.
And ever since she started doing kettlebell at the church, right when she gets home from kettlebell, I always ask her, how'd your thing go? How'd your thing go? And then I followed up with, so how'd your thing go? Did anybody go to your thing?
She doesn't work at an art gallery. It's kettlebell. Are you going to go to your art show this weekend?
I think after however long it is, 10 years of it, Di is feeling a bit patronized at this point. Yeah. Speaking of kettlebell, number 8. Take care of your body.
Okay, so let's talk about this. Your word for the year for 2025 was pie.
Cake, Tony. Cake.
Sorry.
I don't like pie.
Cake. All right, let's talk about our bodies here for a second. PB, you and I are in the gym religiously. I don't do it for the sake of looking a certain way. I do it to truly push my own limits. You've been in the gym for how long? How many years now?
I mean, since I was 14.
Mm-hmm.
Now I work out, I lift weights. It's honestly a stress reliever. A lot of it has to do with anxiety. Mm-hmm. As my friends that do listen to the podcast, that are around my age will know that you can work out as much as you want, but if you don't eat healthy, you still just magically seem to gain weight. This is something that you get to look forward to as you get older.
You're putting on muscle. Is that what you? I would tell myself that it's muscle.
It doesn't look that way though. When you look in the mirror, I do think I need to lay down cake for the year. I've started again doing hot yoga. In fact, tonight my hot yoga class is at 7:30 at night, and I forgot about how much hot yoga made me feel good.
Yeah.
I also didn't realize how tight my body had gotten.
Mm.
So hot yoga is great too. Make sure you get your steps in is great. You live on Green Lake, so you get plenty of time to get your steps in.
Yeah. I eat real well throughout the week. Date night is my one meal I get to eat whatever I want.
I know. I have seasons where I'm insanely disciplined with my diet, and then I go to Egypt, and all I eat is
That's the problem.
bread, and the only other thing that's fun on that buffet table is all the desserts that you got to make sure and try them all. And then I come back, and I'm like, I think I need to fast for 40 days like Jesus.
See, but I have an issue where I live in an extreme. I'll do it, and then I'll swing to another extreme.
That's me too.
I'll eat Taco Bell and Panda Express for a week. My body will say, stop, please stop. And I'll go, all right. And I go back to lean and green. It's the worst. I have a very unhealthy relationship with food. No, I don't have a problem, everyone listening. Sometimes I want burgers.
My problem is that I'm not a foodie, and I'm in a hurry. So I'm always like quick. And when you're in a hurry, if you don't plan, it's just easy to eat unhealthy unless you're Beals. And that is because my wife doesn't enjoy fast food. But I've said this before, I'll say it again. If all food was equally nutritious and I could pick and eat whatever I wanted, I'd choose Dick's.
You would. So when you guys go on road trips, what does Di eat? Does she just eat like
celery? No, she'll order a salad.
Can I have a cup of water?
She will occasionally. My favorite thing is like you go to a fancy restaurant. Fancy restaurants bring out the most amazing bread.
Yeah, they really do. Brown bread.
Like we were
bread.
given for Pastors Appreciation Month. Somebody in the church was very generous. Gave Di and I a really generous gift card to what's that fancy place in Mill Creek? What's it called? Rare Society.
Oh,
and Rare Society
brings
brings out bread.
Can't afford
that is so amazing. And so my problem is that I always ask for more bread, and then Di's like, really think you need more bread? And that is code for you
Put
don't
down
need
the
more bread,
Beals.
Pudgy.
Pudgy. You gonna clip that? You don't need more bread, Pudgy.
That is not going to be used in the reel for this episode.
Well,
You do. I will say that taking care of your body, especially when you're a minister and you're super busy, it's the first thing that we let go of. Like when there's pressure and stress on our time, the first thing we say no to, we think, I don't really have time to go to the gym today. I don't have time to, walk those miles or do that run or whatever, do hot yoga. And so it's the first thing that we let go of. And I would say when I look overall at my life in ministry, I think I did a really great job staying in really as good a shape as I possibly could be in until I had my anxiety break. And I feel like I've been fighting to get my health totally back since that time 8 years ago. And so I see these old pictures of me pre-anxiety break, and I'm like, I was skinnier. And I look like Elijah in those pictures, but I look skinnier than even Elijah did now. But all right, should we keep going, Tony?
let's keep going.
Number 9, get a mentor.
Chat GPT. She listens to everything I have to say and gives me great advice. Get a mentor.
Would you consider me one of your mentors?
What if I said no? What's going to happen if I say no?
Wouldn't be. I'm just asking in all honesty.
Yeah. PB, you've been a mentor since day one. You really have. We're in that unique dynamic where you're a mentor, your boss, you're my pastor, but I also feel like we have friendship, like we enjoy things together. Yeah. So yeah.
I mean, I admit, besides Ariel, I'm your favorite person to hang out with. I know.
Okay. Well, I'll let you, that is your truth, and I'll allow you to believe that. No, I have found, PB, for me, I don't have one mentor for everything. I have multiple mentors who speak into different areas of my life. I have a finance mentor, a health mentor, a relationships mentor. Obviously, you're more like a life coach, more like a life pastor mentor. I don't have a lot. I just kind of take a little bit from all these different mentors in my life. I think what's the problem right now I'm noticing especially with Gen Z, is that they are, for some reason, it comes across that they're rejecting wisdom because they feel like the previous generations have failed them. And in their hearts of trying to be their own thing or be unique, they're pushing away wisdom that could come to them. And I'm noticing this, like they just don't want mentorship. I'm not saying like they're rejecting me, but when I hear someone and they made a financial decision or they're in a relationship and I go, hey, did you run that by anyone? They'll go, no. Was I supposed to? And I think even that response shows me I don't think you have enough wise voices in your life right now. That's just my thought.
Yeah. When I read this, I was reflecting, who would I classify as my mentor? I would say I am a coach or mentor to probably 25, 100 people at any given moment. Like you, I will get advice from people with certain things, but I would say I probably don't have a mentor or coach right now.
You don't have a guy who's like in his 70s or 80s, pastored a church, loved his wife and his kids, and can just like download some truth. I mean, Glenn Berteau for you. You
probably
always
maybe Glenn Berteau.
You always
maybe
talk
Rob
about him.
Carlson too.
Yeah.
And it's not because maybe guys wouldn't desire that type of relationship with me. I think eventually you grow into everybody speaking into your life. And then as ministry evolves over the years and you get older and your ministry develops, you find yourself speaking into everybody's life. And then you get to a certain point where like everybody's just kind of your friend. Like when I think of where Venture is at as a church, there are definitely churches that are larger than ours, but really the scale from a church of 2,500 to 5,000, it's really not that big of a leap. I mean, a lot of it is facility, 90% of it. And those guys all become kind of your friends. Like, so we're all buddies. But I would say, probably at some point, maybe I need a health coach at this point. But yeah.
We have them.
Remember the episode of Seinfeld when Jerry was dating a woman who had a mentor? Remember that?
The mentor.
Yeah.
You remember when Jerry's dating a massage therapist, but she wouldn't give him a massage?
I know.
She gave George a massage.
So unfair.
Kellen, you watch Seinfeld? Who would have thought?
You do? Did you know that I read that Gen Z is falling in love with Seinfeld, but
100%.
they're finding many episodes deeply offensive?
Of course. Babu Bot.
You know what they're doing? They're not only finding it offensive, but they need cry-ins and days off from work because of it.
PB, I don't want another 1-star review.
Hey, I love that person that did that. Thank you for your honesty. Next time, email Morgan.
Morgan.b.
Finally, number 10.
Last
How
one.
do you have a work-life rhythm, Tony? Delegate work.
Oh. You know what was my favorite line from staff meeting today? We were talking about a problem we were trying to solve. And then I think Morgan said, all right, so we'll do a meeting. Brandon, Di, so-and-so. And you remember you said, I don't want to be in this meeting. I was like,
it's true.
Man, one day I can't wait to say that. I don't want to be in that meeting.
Well, it was a meeting about a sign on a wall.
It
Why
doesn't
do I
concern
need to be in the
you.
meeting?
You don't need to be. You're right. You don't need to be
I
there.
already stated my opinion about
You
said
delegated it. It's not for you. But I just thought, I wish I could say that. I don't want to be in this meeting.
I think one of the reasons that I love the season that I'm at right now with Venture, recently somebody had talked to me about another job and my response was, I won't even pray about it. I'm not even considering it. Like I'm not leaving where I'm at all. Wouldn't even consider it. Because there was a time when it came to all the top tier pressure things at the church, I was doing them all. I mean, I was like, everything came to me. I was overseeing staff and finances,
Vision, the
campus
buildings.
pastors,
Yeah.
like I am capable of doing all those things. And I actually have times that I enjoy doing all those things. But I think, why do I love my job so much right now? And that's because I have allowed Alex to run the finances. And I enjoy the finances of the church and I enjoy that aspect. It does cause stress for me at times. And Alex is amazing at it. So having Alex. And then I love working with the campus pastors and things, but having Christian oversee the campus pastors, having Morgan champion the staff, and having Di really kind of the primary leader of the Mill Creek campus. Like, I love doing all of those things. And so, like, there's a part of me that wants to do them all because I enjoy it, but I'm in a really good, healthy situation where I've released those high-level leadership things to them, and then I focus on what only I can do, which is vision, keeping the church on mission, keeping the auditorium looking the way I want it to look.
Is that
inside joke for everybody? And preaching.
Is it unique to you 20 years later, PB, that there's things that you're not going to know about it because you have staff overseeing it or taking care of it, problems that never reached your desk? Is it unique to you that, like, not that you're removed from it, because you're obviously still very much, you care about things, but is it weird not being so much in the weeds anymore at this point in your career?
It's part of why, like, at this point, I love my job, and this would be like, you could get offered more money, you could make more money somewhere else, something would be bigger, maybe way more influence. But again, this goes back to the overall thing. There's such a good work-life rhythm that I wouldn't give that up. My favorite conversations I have with my dad, these are not his favorite conversations. Have you ever had an intense conversation with Walt?
I feel like almost every conversation with Walt is intense. In a good way. I love Walt Beals.
So pretty much every time I'm hanging out with my dad at the house or something, there's a burr in my dad's saddle about something. And my dad will say, well, you probably know about this, Brandon. And then he will then tell me the situation. And my response is, Dad, I don't have a clue what you're talking about.
Wow.
Or my dad will call me and he say, have you thought about, like, we should be doing this? And I'll be like, I don't oversee that area. Hey, what about, can I reserve this classroom, Brandon? I'm like, I don't have anything to do with that, Dad. If you knew how frustrated my dad is that I don't know what is going on, he now will ask me something, and then his response will be, you don't ever know what's going on. Why am I even bothering to ask you? I'm just going to ask Di. Have you heard him say that, Judah? It's pretty much every family function.
Yeah. I'm in a right now with our Seattle team. We have a lot of people on staff who are all not even part-timers. A lot of just people who have said,
you're in the season where you do have to know everything.
I have to know everything, but I'm also releasing and trusting a lot of people to make their own decisions and choose whatnot. So it is a unique dynamic for me right now.
I've always said one of the hardest transitions for a youth pastor, like, he can lead a youth ministry of maybe up to 80 students with a handful of leaders by himself. But if you're going to take a youth ministry to 200, 300, 400, 500 students, you have to make a decision to release leadership of the students to the staff, which means you're releasing to your staff the love and affection from the students. So a lot of youth pastors, they love being youth pastors because teenagers, when they love you, and you're their hero and all of that. But if you're going to take something to another level, you got to release that. And that's one of the most challenging things about pastoring a church is, when you release leadership to your staff, there's many people in the church are way more connected to, like, Johnny than they'll ever be me, or way more connected to Morgan than they ever will be me, or you go on and on. Everybody loves Di, so that's different.
I feel like and Greenie could probably attest to this. Judah is also my youth kid. The times the youth ministry was ever the largest we ever had it, we always had the most youth leaders we had ever had at that point.
Isn't that wild how it always works that way? I had a word from God my first year of youth ministry where the Lord told me, I will give you 10 students for every youth leader you have. So if I ever wanted a youth ministry with 1,000 students, that means I needed to have 100 youth leaders. Yep. And pretty much the entire time, my 12 years of youth ministry, if I had 50 youth leaders, we had 500 students, and it pretty much always played out that way.
Yeah.
And part of it's just that great reminder that God loves the individual, wants them to be cared for.
Yeah, 100%. These were really good, PB. This was awesome. I hope this encouraged everyone to find balance in their life, cultivate balance. You're saying this, I don't have time to have balance. I think maybe the question you need to ask yourself is, how do I structure my calendar to work better for me? And you can cultivate balance, even in a work life, crazy working, studying, I'm in school, whatever, you still can. It's possible, folks. You're not a victim. PB, this was fun. Thank you so much. I loved it. I was trying so hard not to giggle right at the end. A volunteer from our church walked by.
And waved.
No, he was carrying there he is. He was carrying your parking sign.
And what did he do? Just throw it behind the
just
side of the
hauling
building?
it on his shoulder, and you're talking about like your love for Beals and Jesus, and like this guy's just okay. We need to be done. All right, folks. Well, hey, don't forget, give us 5 stars, and if you are truly disgruntled, upset, Morgan.b@ourventure.church. He would love all your feedback.
And Tony and I do care.
We do care.
We like it.
We talk about it.
If your kid is upset, they shouldn't have to go to school for a year.
Uh-oh. We're getting in trouble. Okay. We should be done.
Hey, we are going to have an episode next week and the week after. I don't know what we're doing next week, but the week after, we have Andrew Stanley, the comedian.
I loved your prophetic word right there. We have an episode next week. Name it and claim it.
Well, I have an idea, but I haven't publicly announced it yet, so I don't know if I want to talk about something I haven't publicly announced. So,
you know what we haven't talked about on the podcast, and I think we should at some point.
What is it?
This might make people feel weird, but I think we should at some point. We should talk about intimacy with our spouses. I'm not kidding. I think we should do a love, sex, marriage podcast. What do you think? I'm not talking like details.
Right before Valentine's Day?
Yeah, I think honestly, I'm not kidding. I think we should. I'm not talking like details like, what do you guys do for fun? No, I'm talking like, I'm like, think about it. People in the church, where do they get their wisdom when it comes to marriage now? TikTok and Cosmopolitan magazine. Taylor Swift. I think we should talk about this at some point. Maybe not next week. I think we should at some point.
All right, you can pray, and if
healthy marriages,
the Holy
a healthy
Spirit
marriage
speaks
podcast.
to me about it.
Just saying.
How about we will do something Valentine's Day-ish next week? That sounds kind of fun.
No, I know what you're going to do. You're going to bring in Claire and be like, Claire, what are your favorite traditions? Claire goes, none. I only read books.
No, I keep promising Kaylee. We have to do a redemption podcast.
Oh, Kaylee's begging to be on the podcast.
Oh, and so is Sean. They want a redemption podcast.
So why don't we bring him on next week?
All right.
What do we talk about?
Next week, redemption podcast. Taylor, what's his name? Sean and
King.
Kaylee will come on and will redeem themselves for their last time on the podcast. Sean's was terrible predictions. Kaylee was just a lot of giggling.
We're going to need to bring her inhaler. She laughs a lot.
We could talk about intimacy and marriage and Valentine's Day.
I would rather not. Nope.
Sean would have no problem.
No,
with the
that's like
conversation.
talking to I'm good. All right, we really got to be done. You know what? Forget the sex idea. My bad. Just read sheet music. Or 5 love languages. I don't know. All right. We love you guys. See you next week. Don't forget.
Let's make Jesus famous because he's the hope of the world.
So uncomfortable right now.
Raiders roll.